Two-Face here, back with another reaction video, this time reacting to Frederick the Great, the Battle of Burkersdorf, 1762 by House of History. Now, if you haven't seen my reaction to the other episodes in this series, I suggest you check them out before checking this one out, and, sorry. Last I remember, for most of this series, the Prussians have been on the back foot as of late against the Austrians, and also they got the threat of the Russians and the French. And since the last episode, the Battle of Neusund, they've been threatened by the Swedish as well. So the usual disclaimer when I react to anything historical, if I don't show so much what is considered a proper reaction, it is probably obvious I don't know much about the subject at hand, and if I do anything, I'll most likely pause the video to give my input or ask any curious questions, and hopefully it will be answered in the comments below. With that being said, the link to the original video will be in the description down below. Please go and subscribe to House of History, another amazing history channel here on YouTube. So without wasting up too much of your time, let's get this up on screen and see what happens in this one.
The Messalina of the North is dead.
Wow, noted with lack of empathy. Wow.
As the new year of 1762 dawned upon Prussia, her army lay in tatters, and her once mighty king appeared no more than a madman's mockery, a pitiable figure of despair.
I think it was noted in the last episode that he looked like someone in his mid-60s, even though he was in his mid to late 40s at this point.
On the 6th day of the month, Frederick, weighed down by depression, dispatched a missive from Breslau to his chief minister, Finkenstein, imploring that the Turks be persuaded to engage the Austrians in the Balkans. Else, all hope was lost and Frederick's fate sealed. So dire was his plight that he hinted at ending his own life. 2 weeks elapsed, when on the 19th, a message reached him from his informant in Warsaw, bringing news that the Tsarina Elizabeth had at last breathed her last breath. Frederick's reaction was tempered with caution. He wrote to Finkenstein, advising that the succession of Peter III to the Russian throne left much in doubt, for it was unclear if he would prove a pliant ally to existing Russian powers. To counter the insidious influence of the French and the Austrians, the slothful British ambassador in St. Petersburg, Sir Robert Keith, must be roused from his passivity. Yet Frederick's outlook remained bleak. He surmised...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but no, my luck, he'll probably say later on in the video, but like, I'm pretty sure Peter III was assassinated, leading to the reign of, was it Catherine the Great? I can't really remember.
That the new Tsar's accession would prove as fruitless to him as had the arrival of Charles III in Spain 3 years prior. Little did he know that fate would prove him wrong. As the French complained bitterly, the new Tsar had not a mere attachment, but an inexpressible passion for Frederick, whom he hailed in a personal letter one of the greatest heroes the world has ever seen. In fact, he often wore the uniform of a Prussian...
I bet Frederick wasn't expecting a leader to be such a fanboy.
Major General, and displayed all portraits of his hero in his apartment. Ever resourceful, Frederick resorted to the most sycophantic flattery to win over Emperor Peter's active friendship. He dispatched the legendary Order of the Black Eagle to the pugnacious monarch. With great authority, he appointed him as the chef of the Berlin regiment of Seeburg, a position usually reserved for only the most exceptional of military leaders. In addition, he bestowed upon him a prestigious nominal rank of great magnitude in the Prussian army. Peter's fascination with Prussia was not just a mere admiration for Frederick's heroic deeds, but it was also fueled by his great need for Prussian assistance in regaining the Duchy of Schleswig from Denmark for the House of Holstein, to which he belonged, and it did not take long before a glimmer of hope shone upon Frederick. Viewers of this channel know that storytelling is a powerful way to bring history to
Feel free to check them out if you're
50%
interested.
Off your membership for unlimited access. During a grand banquet at the Russian court on the 5th of February, Peter's discontent with his Austrian ally overflowed, and his harsh words about Austria were so untamed that the Austrian ambassador, Count Mercy, felt too intimidated to even utter them in his dispatch to Vienna.
Wow.
Subsequently, Peter issued orders to the Russian generals to cease all hostile actions against Prussia. Furthermore, the Turks and Tartars were urged to attack Austria.
Wow.
On the 5th of May, a momentous treaty of alliance was signed between Prussia and Russia. Soon after, Russian diplomats were able to broker a peace treaty between Prussia and Sweden, which was signed on the 22nd of May. And in the weeks that followed, a tangible treaty of alliance between Russia and Prussia was finally concluded. Frederick's eyes widened in astonishment as he witnessed the swift transformation of events. In a mere matter of weeks, the north and east were subdued, and the erstwhile enemy, Russia, had transformed into an ally. No wonder that his heart swelled with pride as he sat down to pen the chronicles of this extraordinary episode. The summary of events will present to our view Prussia on the brink of ruin at the end of the last campaign, past recovery in the judgment of all politicians. Yet one woman dies, and the nation revives. However, at this point, it must be noted that Frederick was perhaps giving this act of fate too much credit. Had he truly grasped the dire straits of his enemies, he might have tempered his jubilation. When word reached him that 20,000 men had been discharged from the Austrian army, he was quick to assume that it was a sign of Maria Theresa's unfaltering confidence in securing a total victory. But the reason behind the discharge of the soldiers was not due to a surplus of confidence, but rather a dearth of funds to pay them.
Wow.
So many taxes had been imposed and raised, and so many loans had been procured, that the coffers of Austria were left drained and empty.
Wow.
In truth, almost 40% of their annual revenue was now dedicated to servicing the immense debt
quite
they had
a lot.
incurred. The situation in France...
That's the downside of having a huge army, is making sure you have all the funds to keep it going. Unless they're volunteers, which I highly doubt, because all these soldiers will most likely prefer to get paid. And 40%, my maths is not the best, but I'm pretty sure that's very huge. 40% of Austria's funding goes towards their immense debt. Yikes.
was no better, with a state bankruptcy becoming a very real possibility. When the French ambassador inquired about the fiscal structure of the Habsburg monarchy, the Austrian financial expert, Count Ludwig Zinzendorf, famously retorted, "Can one blind man show another the way?"
What a question.
Once the realization dawned upon Frederick of the great changes that had transpired in St. Petersburg, his demeanor was transformed into one of great exuberance. On the 6th of March, 1762, he inscribed, "The storm clouds are breaking up, and we can look forward to a beautiful calm day, shining with rays bursting from the sun." However, despite the favorable turn of events, there remained tasks at hand. The Russians were presently evacuating Pomerania, leaving Silesia and Saxony ripe for recapture. Schweidnitz was the utmost priority, for as long as the Austrians maintained control of Lower Silesia, they held a strong bargaining chip for the forthcoming.
Bear in mind that all of Silesia used to belong to Austria before the Prussians took over.
Peace negotiations. Leaving Prince Henry and 30,000 men to monitor Saxony, Frederick led an army ranging from 66,000 to 72,000 to Silesia. The strength of these armies was in their numbers alone, not in quality.
I was going to wonder how much of that force was conscripts.
Upon arrival, he encountered Daun and a massive army of 82,000 men entrenched in defensive positions around Schweidnitz. Nevertheless, the spirits of Frederick's army were lifted as 15,000 to 20,000 Russian troops under his former rival Chernyshev arrived to reinforce their ranks. Their combined might was a force to be reckoned with, and together they pressed Daun and his army back to Burkersdorf, situated to the southwest of Schweidnitz. Undeterred, Frederick sought to drive Daun out by employing General Franz Karl Ludwig von Wied zu Neuwald and a corps of 20,000 men to incite chaos in the northeastern region of Bohemia. On the 9th of July, Wied made his way across the border at Friedland and dispatched Lieutenant General Reitzenstein with a horde of light cavalry in the direction of Königgrätz. But these cavaliers soon went rogue, causing Reitzenstein to report that the anarchy amongst the Cossacks is so rampant that any virtuous man would lose his honor and good reputation if associated with them. Daun remained still, biding his time. Yet the tides of war are fickle and capricious. On the 18th of July, word reached Frederick that the Russian army had been summoned back to their homeland. A palace coup in St. Petersburg had taken place, and the newly crowned Tsar, Peter III, had met a bloody end.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was assassinated.
The recall of the Russian army had dealt a severe blow to Frederick's campaign. However, Frederick, ever the master of strategy, wasn't ready to concede defeat just yet. With a generous bribe, he convinced the Russian commander Chernyshev to delay his retreat for 3 days, even if he played no part in the upcoming conflict. This brief respite allowed Frederick to marshal his troops and prepare for a decisive attack on the heights of Leutmansdorf and Burkersdorf.
Wow. Captains are a bit quick. His Majesty must be extremely pleased with the conduct of Count Chernyshev. He's going to give him a rich present, Prussia's royal secretary.
Daun had fortified every rise and hill from Dittmannsdorf to Burkersdorf.
That looks like impressive fortifications.
Spanning the entire chain with his troops.
Wow.
These soldiers were reinforced by copious emplaced batteries, linked by trenches and abatis, making it an impenetrable fortress. Daun had reason to be proud of his work, for his careful and shrewd maneuvers had consistently outwitted the great Prussian king and his vaunted legions. His cunning strategies had prevented the Prussian army from capturing the vital stronghold of Schweidnitz for several precious weeks, all without a battle. Furthermore, the Marshal was still able to feed his men and supplies into Schweidnitz, where he had a garrison of about 12,000 soldiers under the unyielding leadership of Franz von Guasco. The main Austrian positions lay behind substantial fieldworks on the southwest side of the valley, containing the villages of Dittmannsdorf and Ruissendorf. In total, Daun led between 30 and 45,000 troops. The Prussian king commanded approximately 40,000 troops. His audacious plan was to fix the enemy forces with a magnificent show of strength by the lingering Russian army and some Prussian units under the leadership of General Ramin and General Manteuffel. The Lossu hussars galloped through the field, their horses kicking up dust as they went. The red-coated Bosniaks, known for their unrelenting courage, added a touch of animation to the scene as they marched up and down. This was a ploy to fool Daun, making him think that this was where the main attack would be launched. Meanwhile, the main Prussian brigades were sent to the northeast and east, where the enemy positions were weakly guarded. The Prussian forces were divided into 3 separate columns, each commanded by a skilled and seasoned general. 3 nights before the battle, the king dispatched the first column under General Wied to circumvent Schweidnitz and reach their positions. The second column was commanded by General Mollendorf, following Wied. The third was commanded by General Knobloch, who was to attack the Austrian center at Weistritz. As the first light of dawn illuminated the valleys on July 19th, Frederick moved his headquarters to Bogendorf. The soldiers of Ramin's brigade stood at the far western flank in a 2-rank line of battle. In the right center of the Prussian army, the Jägers of the Manteuffel Brigade awaited their orders. Manteufel's artillery wing's howitzers opened fire, unleashing their fiery projectiles over the dense woods, some projectiles reaching the Austrian right wing in the rear. Amidst the stormy deluge, General Weed, leading the Prussian far left, marched relentlessly for 2 consecutive nights from the border hills. Undaunted by the treacherous weather, on the night of the 19th of July, he set forth on a 3rd grueling march, circumventing Schweidnitz, towards the foot of the Leutmannsdorf.
I wonder if the garrison at Schweidnitz noticed the huge movement of troops going up around northeast to east, or were they too focused on watching the main attack from Knobloch in the center?
Hills. These towering peaks, shrouded in dense woods and riddled with ravines, presented a formidable challenge to any who dared to approach. Together with Mollendorf, Weed marched forth, their path illuminated by the fiery blaze of Manteuffel's heavy artillery. Far behind them, the brigade of Knobloch marched straight from Bogendorf. As the morning of July 20th dawned, the Prussian forces stood resolute, their positions secure. The bulk of their army had descended from the northeast, poised to launch a fierce assault against the isolated right wing of their enemy. These numbered around 5,000, led by the indomitable Lieutenant General William O'Kelly. O'Kelly commanded his 2 battalions to hold the far eastern flank on the treacherous slopes of Leutmannsdorfer Berg. Despite the lack of cover and the slippery conditions brought on by the incessant rain, the Irishman stood steadfast. The remainder of his troops, totaling around 4,000 soldiers, stood ready to defend the ground above Burkersdorf, prepared to face the full might of the Prussian army. To their rear, the Prince de Ligne held a redoubt near Weistritz. At dusk on the 20th day of July, 4 battalions of the Mollendorf Brigade silently conquered the village of Burkersdorf.
Wow.
After a fierce encounter, they vanquished a band of Austrian grenadiers who had ensconced themselves in the nearby village. Then they erected a fortification close to it, concealing within it a formidable row of 55 artillery pieces. These weapons stood ready to decimate the Austrian positions farther up the valley. Once Weed began his advance, Mollendorf would unleash a thunderous barrage from the great battery at Burkersdorf, and then he would march onwards toward their enemies, his right flank steadfastly supported by Knobloch. As the first rays of the sun pierced the sky on July 21st, Frederick arrived at the position where Weed's brave troops stood ready for battle. The great king ordered his valiant soldiers to advance and begin the assault. But at this same moment, General Brentano Cimaroli and his corps made their way back to the Austrian camp after completing their Silesian expedition. Daun, the shrewd Austrian commander, immediately dispatched Brentano's corps to reinforce the heights at Leutmannsdorf, sensing the impending danger of the Prussian attack. The Prussian infantry launched a ferocious assault on the Austrian positions around Langenbeilau. But just as they were about to gain ground, General Brentano's leading battalions arrived, fortifying the position and repelling the Prussian charge with great force. The Prussians suffered a loss of 500 soldiers without achieving any progress. However, the Prussians found a way to turn the tides of the battle. They discovered a secret ravine through which they could turn the Austrian entrenchments. 2 more Prussian battalions were sent to reinforce the assault, and with thundering roars and fierce determination, the Prussians drove the Austrians back. Another part of the Prussian army readied themselves for the next phase of their attack. Colonel Lottum led 2 regiments in a fearless charge towards the heights around Ober-Leutmannsdorf. The thunderous sound of cannons echoed through the valley as Lottum and his men relentlessly cleared the way. Despite the overwhelming odds, they pushed forward with unyielding courage, suffering over 300 casualties. With the left flank now in disarray, Brentano's army retreated to Wustwalterdorf under heavy artillery fire. Acknowledging the momentum, Frederick spurred his horse towards the west, where Mollendorf had opened the battle with a battery of 55 guns.
Wow.
The sound of battle intensified as the Prussian guns roared with a deadly ferocity, unleashing a hail of shells upon the Austrians.
Wow.
In the heat of battle, Mollendorf's infantry launched a daring attack, climbing a treacherous hill path to infiltrate the right flank of the Austrian positions. The air was thick with smoke and dust as the Prussian soldiers charged forward with their bayonets at the ready. Amidst the chaos, a fearless grenadier named Wolf emerged, igniting a blaze that engulfed the surrounding abatis, clearing the path for his fellow soldiers to continue their relentless assault. Thanks to Ramin, Manteuffel and the Russians, the Austrians were kept at bay at the northwest, preventing any reinforcements from reaching their heavily besieged lines. Despite their valiant efforts, O'Kelly knew his positions were untenable. The unrelenting storming from the Prussian army had caused the Austrians to abandon their positions and retreat, leaving behind a trail of devastation. As Mollendorf's advance guard installed their artillery at O'Kelly's previously held position, Prince de Ligne's position was battered relentlessly. It forced Daun to order a general retreat, effectively conceding defeat to the Prussian army. Frederick had called off the intended attack of Knobloch's brigade, ascending the Weistritz Valley in person. Victory was theirs regardless. Though the Burkersdorf action was a relatively bloodless affair compared to other battles of the war, the cost of victory was still steep. The Prussian army suffered approximately 1,700 casualties, including 26 officers and over 800 soldiers killed, and 900 wounded or missing. Wierz's corps alone lost 25 officers and 1,568 men. The Austrians were not spared either, with a total of 1,373 men lost in battle, including 202 killed, 349 wounded, 236 captured, and 559 missing.
Wow.
Other sources indicate at least 2,500 soldiers lost. Brentano's corps lost 13 cannons, 24 officers, and 873 soldiers. O'Kelly lost 476 men in the fray.
Caption seems to be a bit fast forward. The subject shall be us, but for me, this poor old man, I should be going back to a town where the walls will be familiar. I shall meet no one, know where the colossal labour is waiting. From where, in a short while, I shall leave my old bones and rest in place untroubled by war, disasters, or human villainy.
After the legendary Battle of Burkersdorf, the Prussian army laid siege to the Austrian garrison in the mighty fortress of Schweidnitz. Daun withdrew from his positions, retreating to the hills of Glatz, effectively losing his communications with Schweidnitz. Frederick kept a watchful eye on the passes leading from the country of Glatz into Silesia, ensuring that Daun could not come to the relief of the besieged fortress. In one last attempt, Daun launched a fierce attack on the force commanded by the Duke of Bevern in a daring attempt to relieve Schweidnitz. Yet, the unyielding Prussian king quickly came to the aid of his army, sending a cavalry charge in support of Bevern's men. The Austrians were no match for the combined might of the Prussian forces and were soundly defeated. This was Daun's final attempt to break the Prussian grip on the fortress, as he was pushed back into the Bohemian mountains, cut off from Schweidnitz. Regarding Daun's inaction, the Swiss military officer and theorist Antoine-Henri Jomini wrote, "Modern history offers no comparable example."
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I remember when I reacted to Napoleon's marshals from Epic History, there was I believe it was Ney's chief of staff, was last name was Jomini.
Example of cowardice. For 63 grueling days, the Austrian garrison, led by the skilled General Guasco, defended the fortress with unwavering determination. Despite facing insurmountable odds, the courageous defenders held their ground against the relentless Prussian assault. It was only after a fortunate bomb thrown by the Prussian army blew up a magazine, opening the way for a final assault, that the garrison ultimately surrendered on the 9th of October. The Battle of Burkersdorf and the Siege of Schweidnitz marked a turning point in the brutal conflict, returning Silesia to Prussian control. In the west, the French garrison at Cassel also capitulated on the 1st of November, ending the campaign there. But the war still raged on in Saxony, where Prince Henry continued to campaign with unwavering energy. As the war drew to a close, there remained one final colossal battle to bring the conflict to a resounding conclusion.
Wow.
Thank you very much for watching this video. Please leave a like, it really helps out the channel. If there is a topic, battle, or person you would like to know more about, let me know your thoughts in a comment. I would also like to thank all my patrons and channel members for their generous support. If you enjoy...
And that'll do it. This has been another great episode by House of History, and there's not much I can add to that apart from the Prussians seem to be on the front foot now, so let's see. It'll be interesting to see if that continues. So if you like this reaction, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.